Hi everyone, welcome to QAWithSJ channel. Today we are going to discuss testing documents. So this is very important as part of the testing. So whenever we wanted to go ahead with either manual testing or automation testing, this is the place where we'll start initially. So we'll work on the testing documentation as a proof that we are going to test. Then we'll proceed with automation or manual testing. Okay. So the main documentation is requirement documentation. So basically, this requirement documentation describes the business functionality requirements, what the client is expecting, right? So whatever is the functionality we are going to implement. So it's a kind of requirement documents. Okay, it has all the required things that we are going to develop. So basically, this is created by business user or product owner mainly or a client. Okay, so the next one is test strategy. So this is very important. So the above one is for mostly it will be created by product owner. From here, all these documentations will be created by QA team. Okay, either manager, lead, or QA team. So test strategy. So this test strategy is a high level document which has the approach for the testing, whatever we are doing for the particular application. The process, it helps to understand the process. So this test strategy will be created based on the requirement documents. So that's the reason I kept requirement documents at the top. So once we understand the requirement, accordingly we'll have test strategy documentation will be created. So I will explain what is how the requirement documentation looks like, how the test strategy documentation looks like. I will explain in a bit. So please bear with me. This video is somewhat lengthy. And the test plan documentation. So this test plan documentation has a defined uh, test cases and execution status and the test scenarios also. Okay, so the detailed test level documentation is called a test plan, I would say. Okay, so the test strategy is a high level documentation where we can have who is testing, what is the what is the in scope, what is the out scope, what environment we are using, what kind of testing we are doing, what are tools we are using. So all this includes in test strategy at high level. Test plan is somewhat in a deeper level where it has all the test cases and test scenarios. Okay, so let's discuss what is a test scenario. So it's a high level functionality that need to be tested. That is called a test scenario. What is a test case? In detailed test steps will be written with respect to a test scenario. That is called a test case. So we'll explain this also in a in a bit. And the requirement traceability matrix. So what is this requirement traceability matrix? Again, it's a documentation. So for each requirement, we have a requirement ID. So according to the requirement ID, what are all the test cases we have covered? What are all the scenarios we have covered? So it's given high level visibility. What are all the tests we have written? Just to make sure test coverage is satisfied or not. That is called requirement traceability matrix. We'll explain in a while. Okay, so in case of test scenario test case, let's take an example of a login functionality is might be a test scenario. So what are all if you are a tester, what are all scenarios you will be tested when the scenario is login functionality, right? Login with valid password and valid username, login with invalid credentials, login with no credentials, then how the application is behaving, right? So all this comes into different test cases. That is a test case. The high level one is a test scenario, right? So let's go to the documentation just to understand what are all of these. Okay, so that first one is requirement documentation, right? So this is how the requirement documentation looks like. So this is sample one. There is a furniture shop, that is SJ furniture shop. Okay, this furniture shop it's already have an application, but now they wanted to integrate with PayPal. So whenever someone is ordering something, apart from other payment checkout options, they wanted to integrate with PayPal also. So this is the requirement. Okay, Now this is how it looks like: software requirement specification documentation, and this is the document information, date, prepared by, and this is the table of contents. So what this particular doc is. So let's go to the actual introduction, the purpose. So this document defines the requirement of integrating PayPal as an additional payment option within this furniture e-commerce checkout process. Okay, so this is the purpose. So this is the project overview. So the proposed enhancement is introduces PayPal as an alternative payment method. Okay, with proper authentication and all of that. So that is the project overview. So what is the business need here? So why they wanted to integrate? Because few people might wanted to do the payment process with PayPal, right? So it will be an added advantage, right, for the particular furniture shop. Let's suppose someone want to buy something, and if they have only PayPal, then then the customer will pay with that. But if that application doesn't support, then they might lose the customers, right? So now this will increase payment flexibility for the customers, user experience. That's what I said, right? And secure third party payment option, obviously, and functional requirements, right? Display payment methods, credit card and pay and PayPal. This is another functional requirement. Payment method selection. The customer shall be able to select one payment method before completing the checkout process. Okay, so these are all related to authentication. Okay, this is not required to create from the scratch as a testers. This will be created by the product owners. We just need to review and understand what is the business need, what is the requirement. So accordingly we have to create test strategy and test plan documentations. Okay, so this is the base. So PayPal authentication. So functional requirement is 3. Redirect to PayPal. When a customer selects a PayPal and clicks continue or pay now, the system shall redirect the customer to the PayPal authentication page. Okay, and the payment login page, the customer shall be able to log in using valid PayPal credentials and authorizations. So once they enter proper credentials, or proper OTP or whatever it may be, that card details, then once the customer is able to approve or decline, right? Someone might want to decline once they go to the payments, their mind might change, right? So we should give that option as well. And once authorization is done, the payment is done, again return to website. Successful payment, failed payment, cancel payment, and transaction record. Sometimes the payment might be failed. Then how the actual functionality should happen. Sometimes the customer might cancel the payment during the checkout process, right? And the transaction record, once the transaction is complete, it should maintain a transaction record also in the particular application. And order confirmation page, order number generation. For every order there will be a unique order will be generated, right? So all these are requirements. Okay, confirmation page should be there, confirmation email should be there. You might have come across these kind of scenarios in your real time, right? When you order something either through Flipkart or Amazon, you will be able to go to the confirmation page. It will generate an unique order ID, and then you will get a notification to your phone number or email, right? So this is existing credit card functionality. The current credit card payment process shall continue to function without modification. Do you remember regression testing? If you test, so let's take this requirement. So this requirement is PayPal integration. Now, if you test PayPal integration, that is smoke testing. Sorry, sanity testing. Okay, critical functionality when you test it, that is smoke. Okay, when you test the new functionality, that is sanity testing. When you test the new functionality, that is PayPal integration with including exist functionality, that is called regression testing. So here they want to check the existing functionalities also. Okay, so these are all some non-functional requirements. These might be also either QA team will perform, or there might be a separate teams, like we have discussed non-functional testing also, right? The performance, all these things, the security testing. So this is also a requirement, but there might be some other teams where they will do that. Reliability testing, the system shall maintain 99.9% checkout availability. So the product shouldn't be empty, right? Okay, and you can see when the payment is failed, it shouldn't create a duplicate orders. So these are all comes into real reliability and usability tests. Customers shall clearly understand whether they are paying by credit card or PayPal. Error message shall provide clear instruction for corrective action when something is failed during your checkout process or during once the payment is successful, right, or not successful. In such cases, either successful message or error message should be clear. These are all some assumptions and acceptance criteria. So whatever the requirements are clearly indicated or written, so those things should be met. However, these things will be done by this kind of testing will be done by from our end, at the same time from the uh, customer end also. Okay. So these are all some constraints. Integration must be used PayPal approvals API. So this is again some API related, and which sandboxes, I mean which environments we wanted to use, either dev, test, or pre-prod, prod. So like that we have environments, right? So that's what these constraints here. And future considerations. Maybe in the future what they wanted to do, either PayPal along with PayPal, right? Apple Pay, Google Pay, right, some other future considerations. This is just an approval. Okay, so this is all about the requirement documentation. So this describes the functional requirement, what they are going to do, how uh, what is the scope. Okay, what are all process we have to do of like non-functional and functional testings, right? Functional requirements. So everything the requirement will be in in this particular document in a detail. That is called requirement documentation. So based on this documentation, as a testers, we have to understand this. If you have any doubts, there will be a call with the product owner. So in that call, product owner will explain these requirements. So you will also be part of that particular call along with the Scrum Master and developers. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the call, or once the call is completed, they will product one will share this kind of documentation, so you have to go through it and understand it. If you have any questions, you can simply ask him. Okay, and the next one is test strategy. Okay, so as I said earlier, so test strategy documentation will be created by the QA team based on the requirement documentations. Okay, so this particular test strategy documentation has testing overview. Okay, testing overview, and what is the scope, like what are in scope and what is out of scope, and testing approaches. Okay, like when we are going to start the testing, when we are going to end the testing, how we are testing, like what are the tools we are using. Okay, maybe Selenium for front end, and maybe for back end Rest Assured, or maybe Playwright or Cypress for front end and back end. Okay, for manual testing, again we might maintain our test cases in Excel, or some manual testing tools like Azure is there, right? Some tools are there, right? So what tools are we are using? What language we are using? Either Java or JavaScript or TypeScript. Okay, and what environments we are using, either we are going to test in dev environment or test environment or staging so all these details will be there in testing strategy documentation. So this is high level documentation. Okay, let's go through. So what is the introduction here? So there is an SJ furniture, so they wanted to integrate with PayPal, right? So that is the main goal, right? That's the introduction and the background. So once the customer is able to enter once they entered the particular address details, then they have to do the payment checkout process with PayPal, right? So this is the testing strategy overview. So this is the main objective. So what is the main objective? Ensure all required changes have been developed according to the client's requirement, and verify existing core functionality have not been negatively affected by the new changes. So that's what we do, the regression testing. Okay, ensure the changes improves the user experience. User who do not choose PayPal should experience a no negative impact on the checkout flow. Because of the integration of the PayPal, there shouldn't be any effect with the existing functionalities. So that is the main objective, and the user should be able to do the PayPal integration. Okay, so this is testing levels. The QA team is responsible for functional and integration testing. The client will perform. I told you, right, user acceptance testing. and unit testing might must be done by developers. So this is some levels. So what is this, what is the in scope, guys? So the in scope is we have to check existing checkout flow and the PayPal payment integration. So in this PayPal payment integration, these modules will be covered mostly. You will log in your product, you will log into the application and search for, let's suppose I've just opened Apple Flipkart. Let's search for a product. You will search for a particular product and then you will be uh, add all the I haven't yet logged in, but once you log in, when you do the uh, checkout process, then what will happen? It will ask you card details. There you should have select an option called PayPal, and you will be able to check out, and then order history also will be shown. That is in scope. What is out of scope? What is the any functionality or code out of the particular requirement? Okay, outside the checkout flow, that is out of scope. Okay, maybe you can include security testing. That is also out of scope because there is update teams you'll there will be doing, or if you are not going to do performance testing, or that can also be mentioned here out of scope. Okay. And then testing approach. So how we are going to test, right? That's the process. This is called testing approach. Okay. What is the enter and exit criteria? So the client must provide all the environment and credential details. And unit testing, we have discussed this particular thing also in where, in levels of testing, right? We have unit testing, we have system testing, we have integration testing, regression testing, smoke testing, sanity testing, right? So we have discussed unit testing. So what is a unit testing? So unit testing will be written by the developers to satisfy the code they have written. That is called unit testing, right? So that is the entry criteria. And once the application is ready, once the in dev or test or staging environments, mostly in dev or test, okay, then we can go ahead. We are ready to start testing either manual or automation, okay. And the another criteria is unit test coverage must be at least 85% before QA testing starts. Okay, there is a coverage. Maybe once the developers written the code with different tools to satisfy the code they have written. Once that is done, they can run this particular test in GitHub. Okay, then it will gives the coverage. There we can have an possibility to check what is the coverage, so that we can check it over there. That is the entry criteria. So entry criteria might change from organization to organization. Again, within organization, from department to department, it depends. Okay. Then exit criteria. Once you completed the testing, once the coverage is met, once the application is working as expected without breaking inbuilt functionality as well as new functionality, right? That is exit criteria. So what is the team responsibility? Perform manual UI testing and API testing also manually with the postman. And then once that is done, once you've done testing with all of these payment gateways and UI and APIs and all of that, maybe you can work on automation part, UI and APIs phase wise. It's up to you. Again, it depends. Okay. And if there are any bugs, defects you identified during the test, during the testing phase, again you will be creating these bugs. So don't worry, we have another session on the bugs. Okay, what is a bug, what is a defect, what is an error, what is a failure, what is a fault, what is this difference between these, right? So we have another session on that. So how to create a bug, okay, what is a bug life cycle, we are going to discuss. So simply just to keep in mind, so what is a defect? If something is not working as per the requirement, if there is any deviation as per the requirement, that is called a bug. Okay, so you have to report it. Either there might be there are some tools. Again, it depends on the organization what tools they are going to use. So there will be Jira, Azure, X-ray. So there are multiple applications like tools. So we can use it and we can raise a bug. So we can discuss how to create a bug and all of that. Okay. So and the test manager's responsibility is to provide status updates and had a call with the clients maybe daily or weekly and provide updates and the reports and all of that. Okay. and the testing environments. So what are all the environments we are going to test? So developers will write, yeah. So developers will write during development unit testing, and testers will test it in do the functional testing, integration testing. So these are the environments. Okay. So staging I said it again, it depends, people might call different names. Okay, but it depends. Okay, testing environment, dev environment, sandboxes. Don't worry, sandbox, when someone calls sandbox, this terminology is also an environment. Sandbox means also an environment. So okay, where we'll perform all of these testing activities. Okay, and the tools for test case management, maybe either you can use Jira for defect tracking. Jira. Okay, if when you are testing initially Postman and then Playwright. Okay, metrics, playlet reports, unit tests. Maybe I told you, right? So developers will write some unit tests. So those unit tests, again, they need some libraries. One of the libraries is called Jasmine and CI/CD. So what is CI/CD and how to integrate? Again, we'll going to discuss in another session. But just to give a glance and heads up, uh, so so developers write their code. I mean development code, either front end and back end integration. Everything will be created under project structure, and this code will be maintained under GitHub. Now in the same files, mostly in the same project structure, we'll create one more folder. Okay, either if it is Selenium related, or if you use Selenium, either you can use Selenium, or again you can use Playwright or Cypress. It depends again what your organization decides. Okay, so we'll create one more folder and start writing our tests over there. Once that is done, okay, when the test maintained in GitHub, when someone raised a PR, when someone merged the code from one branch to another branch, you don't worry. Again, we'll have a separate discussion on GitHub. Okay, so basically these test cases, once you develop in your local laptop, these test cases will run in GitHub in the internet also. Okay, so let's suppose someone did some change. Then what happened? When they are trying to add this change to the main code, then all automatically test cases will run. Okay, that's what CI/CD process will have its separate calls on that, a session on that. Okay, so defect management, again for defect management, as I said, you can use some Jira. If you, let's suppose you find some bug when you're testing a let's suppose here we have searched something like this. Okay, I'm just giving some search. What happened? Sorry, no results found. Because there are no products with this particular product name. So the product name I gave it as some some symbols I provided, right? So with these symbols there are no product names. So that's the reason. Let's suppose let's suppose with these products, if you find some products, then it might be a bug, right? So once you identify a bug, you have to report it to, you have to give it to the developer. So we cannot go and tell them, hey, you cannot call them and say share your screen and show. Not like that, right? So everyone is busy. So what you will do, you can use a Jira application. You can create this particular ticket along with screenshot, and in which environment you identify this bug, steps to reproduce, like how you find the bugs, like steps. First launch the application, enter so and so uh, product name like this with special symbols, then we are able to display the products, but ideally shouldn't. So you will provide all the details, right? So that we can use a Jira for that. Okay, if there are any critical bugs, so all these things will also be comes under test strategy. And release information, so all the tickets must be moved to done status. Like before releasing, these are all some checkpoints kind of things. Okay, ticket must be tagged with appropriate release numbers, and all blocker and critical defects must be resolved. Okay, and reporting and metrics, we can use inbuilt Playwright reports, or with Selenium we have extended reports or earlier reports. We can use all of these reporting mechanisms, and we can provide these daily metrics also. uh, Test manager will provide required details in the daily status calls or weekly status call reports, no calls. Okay, so or else when we are doing manually testing, uh, then again in manual testing we can provide manual metrics. I will show you in a while. Test plan documentation also. Okay, So this is how the testing strategy document look like. Okay, so introduction, in scope, out of scope, and then testing approach, and again in testing approach, what environments we are going to use, right? And then what tools we are using, what is the programming languages we are using, right? So all these details will be, and who is testing, who are not testing. So all these details will be in a high level. Okay, now let's go to test plan. Okay, so as I said, test plan is nothing but a detailed documentation that defines the test cases and execution status. Okay, so that I would say indirectly test scenario and test case documentation is nothing but a test plan. Okay, what's your plan on your when you want to test, right? Now you can see, so this is a test case documentation. Okay, this is how in generally organization will write test cases manually. Even for automation also, before automation definitely we have to do manual testing at least once, right? Then only we can decide which can be automated, which cannot be automated. So we'll maintain the documentation like this. What is the test case ID? What is the test case name? What are all the test steps? So I have written test steps very generic way, but in generally we have steps like launch the browser, enter enter the URL, enter the username, password. Okay, then search for the product, click on the product. So like that. But here I've just gave it in a high level in generic way. Okay, and what is the expected result? What is the status? If there are any comments, you can add it. Okay, now here, as I discussed earlier, test scenario is a high level functionality. Okay, test cases is for each scenario how many test cases we can going to cover. If you could see login functionality, right? In login functionality, you can check with valid login, invalid password, empty username, empty password, forgot password. So like this, we can have, we can write multiple scenarios. Sometimes we'll provide leave empty both username and password and click on login button, how it behaves. Right? That can also we can be added. And enter username and password, instead of clicking login button, we can simply hit enter button in our keyboard. Then how it is behaving. So I haven't added, but we can add those things also, right? So here scenario is this one, login functionality, and these are all test cases. So similarly, let's go with the product search. So what is a product search? We can search for a particular product. So I'm just searching for a product called Apple. Then we can see, we're able to see the results. You can see that search search with the product by name. So I'm searching by product name. What is the product name? Apple. Then what happened? All the Apple products are displaying. You can see under the product name. That is a test step. And what is the expected result? All the products should be display. If shouldn't display, then it's a bug. Okay. Search by category. Instead of apples, I will simply provide it as like mobile. Then what will happen? All different mobiles will be displayed. Then what is the expected result here also? When we search with the category, products from selected category should be display. All categories should be display. Now search with invalid keyword. Let's suppose I'm giving some special characters. Then what will happen? Ideally, it shouldn't display any records or any products. Now intentionally, what I did here. Let's suppose products are displaying even though you provided some special characters. Okay. Then what will happen? Then it's a bug. You have to report it to the developers. So what you are supposed to do, you will create a bug in either Jira or Azure or whatever, X-ray or whatever the tools you are using. Okay, I'm making this status as file, and I gave that particular bug number. So this particular Excel sheet will be maintained in OneDrive or SharePoint, I mean SharePoint or somewhere else, so that client also will have access, and when your manager also have visibility, right? So that it will be helpful for your manager, team leader, or for you also. Sometimes you will be a direct point of contact to the customers, so you will be joining on daily calls or weekly status report calls. So you have to present it. So we have called so far so and so, we have tested so far and so, and we identified this bug, and we are sent to it so and so person, the developer, they are working on something like that. Okay, so the next function scenario is cart functionality. Add a product to the cart, add multiple products, remove particular product, then how it is behaving, right? Checkout functionality. Proceed to checkout, place order successfully, enter shipping address without shipping address, or without I mean without payment details, invalid payment details, how the application is behaving. So all these things we are going to test. We can add more test cases as well, but this is a sample documentation. So this can be called as a test plan. Okay, test strategy is what we are going to test, what is the in scope, what is the out scope, what are the environment details, what are the tools we are going to use. Okay, it is a high level documentation. What is the entry criteria, what is an exit criteria, what reports we are going to generate. So that is test strategy. The test plan is in detail, what kind of scenarios, what kind of test cases. Okay, I hope you got some clear picture, right? So the next documentation is requirement traceability matrix. The name itself is explaining traceability, right? So something nothing but something like mapping, right? So what is this traceability matrix? Is requirement traceability matrix. So this is basically used to uh, to judge the test coverage. Okay, let's suppose there are requirements, like we have the requirements, right? So let's take an example of, okay, login functionality is one requirement, product search is one requirement, cart functionality is one requirement, checkout functionality is one requirement. The names might be different. Okay, now each requirement has one ID. Let's suppose login functionality has requirement ID REQ001. Let's take an example. Okay, now product search functionality has REQ002. Now cart functionality has 003. Now we have given 004. Now what are all the test cases are covered under requirement 001? You can see here test case 1 to test case 5. These are all covered under login functionality requirement. Okay, here yes, it's a scenario. Okay, let's take an example. This is one requirement also. Okay, now these are the test cases are covered. Now you can see this requirement ID is mapped with how many? Five test cases. This particular requirement is 4 test cases. This requirement is 6 test cases. This requirement is with 7 test cases, right? So again, the same thing I have provided as a detailed summary. So this requirement 1 has covered test case 1, test case 3, 4. So what is this test case? I just gave it as definition so that instead of test case ID, if someone wanted to look, they can simply, instead of switching to test cases tab, they can view it here. Okay, okay, for requirement ID 1, they have covered these many test cases. Okay, for requirement 2 they have covered these many test cases, so that we have the traceability, we have that matrix. So this will helps to understand the test coverage standpoint. Okay, so that is what the requirement traceability matrix. This is also can be created by QA team. So this test cases documentation, RTM documentation, can be presented to the clients in your daily status calls or weekly status reporting calls. Okay, so this is all about test cases documentation. Okay, so we have discussed so far requirement documentation, test strategy, test plan, scenario, test case, and RTM. Okay, so this requirement documentation most probably will be created by PO, and the remaining documentations will be created by QA team or team lead. I hope you understand. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe. Thank you.